But I'm going to take a turn to the left and talk about money in a different way, and hopefully in a more light-hearted way to start with. So, does anybody know anybody that hasn't got enough money? Raise your hands if you know somebody. Some of you guys know people with lots of money because there wasn't many of you put your hands up. But yes, we all know people that haven't got enough money. And I guess there's some people in this room here that would like some more as well. Wouldn't you agree? Yes or no, guys? Yeah. So, what's your number? Anybody got any idea what I'm talking about? What's your number? What you need, yeah. I can tell you, in 30 years' experience in financial planning, just about everybody that walks through my door has got no idea what that is. But I'm going to hopefully tonight, show you, if you haven't already got there, what you can do to work out what that number is. And if you know what that number is, don't you think it's possible that you might be able to come up with a plan to get there? Yes or no, guys? So, we've all heard this quote, haven't we? Fail to plan, plan to fail. Anybody know who wrote that quote? I can tell you it's Benjamin Franklin. I think he was the President of the United States a long time ago. There you go, Benjamin Franklin. So three really important numbers when it comes to financial planning here. Anybody got any ideas what these numbers are? No? I'll put you out of your misery. So, start with a 5. 5% of the population will never ever worry about money because they've made enough in their lifetimes, or their families have, that they will never run out of money. So let's forget about those, because I guess there might be some people in the room, but not many. 80%. What do you think 80% is? 80% is where most people end up in their lives, and I can broadly categorise that as those that get to the end of their working lives and are flat, dead, broke. Living on a state pension and charitable handouts. 15%, I guess, is us people in this room, and that's where I think we should be focusing, because 15% of the population have got something by the time they get to their end of their working lives so that they can enjoy their lives. It's an absolute tragedy in my book that 80% of the population never get anywhere near it. But going back to that quote, fail to plan, plan to fail. So does anybody know the 8 ways to get wealthy? There are only 8. Anybody want to give me a few ideas? You should know because you've got one of them. It's not up there, but I'll buy that one. But it's sort of in there, but higher level. What are the 8 ways to get rich? Sorry? Well, I'll give you... Well, the first way is you marry it. Raise your hands if that's your strategy. Dawn, put your hand up. Wait, so you could inherit it, couldn't you? You could get rich by inherit. You might have to wait a long time. You'll like the next one. Anybody got that in there? Trust me, there are people out there every day. We get emails from them, don't we? Nigeria. I've got 25 million. I just need your bank account details. So yes, you can win it. Play the lottery, but I don't know. What's your chance of winning? Very, very little. I actually don't like the idea of that as a strategy at all. It's probably my least favourite. Well, stealing's definitely not there, but playing the lottery is an awful strategy because it'll just kill any kind of desire to achieve anything. Because every Friday or Tuesday, whenever they're playing, I'm going to win this week, I'm going to win this week, and then you read your numbers, and you haven't even got one. So we're going to forget that. So, some sensible ones now. We could run a business. So some of us will be running businesses. We could do property, couldn't we? That's a good way of making money, isn't it? we could invest in the stock market. And the final way is probably the most recent addition of the way to get rich, and that is to use the internet. Classically, intellectual property rights. Create something that's knowledge-based that you can sell. So, top line, that is the only, they're the 8 ways to get wealthy. There are, everything else you can think of is going to fit in there one way or the other. So, I'm crossing these ones off, personally. You can keep them if you like, but I don't think, apart from Dawn, she's going to marry it. Yeah. So when it comes to working out how much money we need, I think we need to know what we need money for. And again, top line, there are only 6 needs for money, and they all have different levels of importance. Anyway, I'll walk you through them. So the first one right at the bottom.
Tell you what my grandfather said now. He said there are only 3 things important in life: food, shelter, and clothing, in that order.
That's right at the bottom. They are the essentials. So the essentials are absolutely baseline what you need. I don't know why it's disappeared off it. Second is what I would call essential outgoings. Gas, electricity, all those things, because the absolute essentials are not those. The third line, here we go. Right, thank you, Thomas. So, survival money, as I'm calling it, essential money, and remember I was talking about 80% of the population flat dead broke when they get to the end of their working lives? They've only got the 2 bottom levels. There's then what I call get out of jail money. Everybody in this room has probably got some of that. That's our emergency cash reserve. It's not what we're going to use for gas utility bills or anything like that. It's that bit we've got on the side. If something comes along left field, you can just go, right, there's £5,000 or there's £10,000 that I've got to go and spend on flights to Australia to see a relative or something like that. Then we've got comfortable life money, so that we can live the life that we want to live. On top of that, there's serious fun money. That's travelling first class everywhere, the fantastic holidays, and finally at the very top, if we're fortunate enough to be successful in our lives, we've got legacy money. If we're one of those people that's managed to create £5 million worth of asset base by the time we finished our working lives, we can perhaps leave some kind of legacy. Maybe it's charitable work, or maybe it's our children or grandchildren. So how do we work out what we need? Because for one person it is X, for the next person it's Y. But there is a simple way to work out what you need. We call it the rule of 25. Anybody heard of the rule of 25? You should write this down if you are on that road. So the rule of 25 works like this. If you take what your monthly expenditure is likely to be, and if you don't know what you're spending right now, I would urge you to work out what your living expenses are. Get a spreadsheet, put all the things, the gas, the electricity, the food bill, the hair bill, whatever it may be, the going out bill, and multiply that figure by 12. So that's going to give you what your costs are to live every year. And if you multiply that figure by 25, that will tell you what your capital base needs to be as an absolute minimum, so that you can say, I'm not working anymore. So that gives you that capital sum that you need to get to, or try to get to. So just to give you an example, let's say your monthly expenditure is £2,500 a month. You're spending £30,000 a year. Multiply that by 25. So you need a minimum capital base of £750,000, which is a scary number, I know, probably for some people. But if we don't know what that number is there any chance we're going to get to that number if we don't know what it is? My guess is, if you do, it's totally by luck. And that's why so many people, the 80%, don't get anywhere near that. So that's the total amount of money you would need so that you avoided running out of money during your lifetime. So how do you make sure you don't run out of money? I've got another rule. I like rules. They keep me on track. They stop me making foolish mistakes. So they follow the rule of 4% or no more. Because if you follow the rule of 4%, the 4% rule, it'll help you avoid overspending or underspending. Nothing wrong with underspending, because that may help with generational planning. All I would say with generational planning is if you're going to underspend, you should be planning sooner rather than later, because we all know that if we don't plan to pass on our wealth to the next generation in good time, we're going to hit inheritance tax. That's not in the property world, that's not an easy problem to solve, so the sooner you look at that, the better. So this is a typical cash flow model that I would use for my clients. In very simple terms, I'm taking that 750,000, we've maybe created 3 different pots of money, and we're spending the money down. So in the bottom right hand corner, starting at say 65, right at the end of the graph is age 100. So you can see that person is underspending, definitely not overspending. And I guess a lot of people would like to be in that position, not necessarily the numbers, but be able to say, I've got a nice pot of money when I retire, but by the time I'm no longer here, I'll be able to pass on at least some of my estate. So we've enjoyed our lives, but we haven't gone absolutely crazy. So I would say that is somebody that has made some smart decisions. On the other hand, if somebody is overspending, pretty easy to do, isn't it, overspending? Especially if you haven't worked out what your cost of living is. So this type of person has maybe not done the maths and ends up running out of money. So this particular scenario, this person's run out of money at age 90. And you might think, well, does it matter if I've run out at 90? Might not be here. Does it really matter? Probably not spending a lot of money at that time of my life. But does anybody know what the most expensive year of our lives is? Well, death doesn't cost you anything. It's costing somebody else, most likely. Statistically, 92 is the most expensive year of your life. Age 92. Because you've got health problems or you're going into a care home. So this person might be thinking, okay, I'm not bothered if I run out at 90 or roundabouts. But I would be a little bit worried, because I personally want to choose what care home I'm going to go into. Not just go in a local authority care home. No, if there are any, they're going to be fighting for places, and that's only going to get worse. So I call that the risk of financial ruination. And these cash flow models are very useful for me when I'm planning for my clients, because I've got an idea whether they'll run out of money or not. It's really powerful. So if I was just going backwards here, when I show that to my clients, they think, well, I know what they're thinking. They're thinking, I can spend a bit more money, can't I? I can spend an extra £1,000 a month or something. Because who here has spent their lives accumulating? Yeah, everybody in this room is trying to accumulate. And do you know what happens when you get to the point when you've finished what you're building? It becomes very difficult to see those assets come down in value. Really difficult. Because we're hardwired after 40 years of trying to create wealth to start spending it. It isn't easy, trust me. I was in the client meeting this morning, and it was what I would not expect. I'm sorry, I'm going to say something slightly sexist at the moment. The husband saying, I want to spend an extra £1,000 a month on the 4 sports cars that he races. He's a 68-year-old gentleman, and his wife was saying, no, we still need to keep saving. His cash flow model looked just like that. So he could easily spend another £1,000 a month, but no, we've got to save. Because that's 40 years hardwired building my asset base. So it's difficult to flip that switch. But I think we should try, because if we just let it accumulate, Who's going to get the lion's share of it? Children or the taxman? Somebody said taxman. Yeah, you only need 2 kids, and the biggest factor is the taxman. The 2 kids get 30% each. Taxman gets 40. I know there's the mill rate ban, but if the estate's big enough, the state is definitely the biggest winner.